After more than 2 months in office, President Biden finally held a press conference. How did he do? Well, sadly, that depends on where you sit politically. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to break it down. It's Rob Nelson Live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Friday night special. Rob Nelson Live, coming at you from our virtual studios in Florida and Los Angeles, simulcasting to you on all social platforms. And as always, welcoming all your interaction, engagement, and feedback. Love the people, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, you guys who really dive in with comments. We put them up on the screen. I go back and forth with you. You guys go back and forth with each other. Okay, so Biden held a press conference. 60 plus days in, he finally did it. I went off on him for not doing it. I thought he should have done it way sooner. I still think he should have done it way sooner, but he finally did it. Good for him. We're going to bust down how it looked. I just want to say right up front, okay? Sadly, how you think the president did in his press conference almost like exclusively depends on your politics. If you are left of center, you think, not everybody, but most people think Biden did a really good job. If you're right of center, Biden sucked. Neither is completely true, right? Biden did some good things. Biden did some bad things. Biden showed certain qualities, which I'm going to get to, which are very Biden, some of which are good and some of which are really bad. But at the end of the day, it's the first chance we've got to see the president in front of the press, not freewheeling per se, but at least out there sort of taking questions. Now, again, the media, for the most part, gave Biden high marks. I mean, some people just went off the deep end. Jennifer Rubin from the Washington Post literally had an orgasm about Biden's performance. I like saying things like that because, I'll get canceled now. I made a sexual innuendo joke. No, but she just went off on it. She actually made a sports analogy. She viewed it as if he was a fighter. And she said Biden was so awesome, like the way he was eloquent. He elevated the conversation, lifted us up above, didn't do any of that crazy Trump stuff where he's just spewing left, right, and center, was focused, organized, had his little notepad and handled every question really well. The press, she said, did a horrible job. She literally said the press was unfair to him. I watched the press conference. I don't know how anybody could think the press was unfair. I mean, most of the questions were really softball. All of them were polite. The exchange was a dignified, polite exchange between the president and the press corps, as it used to be years ago. But very few were hardball questions. But she was like, the press tried. She's like, no matter how hard they tried, she said, no matter how hard they tried to throw Trump off his game, they couldn't do it. I'm sorry, Biden. No matter how hard they tried to couldn't throw Trump off his game. No matter how hard they tried to throw Biden off his game, they couldn't succeed. And she said, they threw every punch they could. None of them landed. I mean, seriously, she's like the guy's in a prize fight. I mean, listen, I've done boxing training before. And, the trainer hit me harder when I had the pads and the head thing on than Biden got hit. I don't know who could come off thinking the press was hard on him. Did some of them push a little bit to get answers? Yeah, a little bit, not a lot. But overall, the media gave him super high marks for being really eloquent, for being really thoughtful. Okay, I'm going to be honest about this. I think he did some really, really good things. Yeah, kicker on Reddit, I agree. It was like watching a dementia conference. But more than that, more than the dementia part, because we'll make a little fun of that, Biden did demonstrate to me there's a really clear understanding of a lot of things, a lot of policy things. But, again, he'd go on. I mean, he went on for 5-6 minutes answering one question and then finally asked it, am I going on too long? And the reporter's like, well, you just didn't answer my question. You were talking in the general space. She asked it again. He went on for another 5 minutes. He only took questions from 10 reporters. I mean, again, give the guy some slack. He's very different than Trump, but let's not go crazy and be like, it was the best press conference ever. I hate that no one can just be honest. I hate that people on the left, the press on the left can't just go, you know what? It was mediocre, but we're happier with it than Trump. But Biden did do, the honest truth is Biden kind of sucks when he's in that format. I think he used to be kind of okay good at talking to people. He always has his gaffes. but he's not really very compelling. I mean, you literally start to fall asleep watching him. I tried. I watched it through like twice. You really have a hard time staying with it. Like, it's like, come on, man. That's a Bidenism, by the way. Come on, man. And he had his classic moments where he just said things. I'm going to show you a clip. We're just going to have a little fun where Biden talks about the filibuster. Check this out.
With regard to the filibuster, I believe we should go back to a position of the filibuster that existed just when I came to the United States Senate 120 years ago. I'm going to say something outrageous. I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway.
I'm sorry. We can laugh, right? I mean, that's funny, right? That's like an SNL skit, right? 120 years ago when he came to the Senate, he doesn't even catch himself. He doesn't go, I mean, he's like, okay, what went on in there? I don't know. And then the thing about when you want to get something done and, but see the things bouncing anyway. In fairness to Biden, this press conference showed me that Biden does have a command of information. Granted, he uses cue cards and all that, but nonetheless, he understands policymaking. He understands how Washington works, and he does understand the intricacies. He understands the intricacies. I can't speak. I'm like Biden. He understands the nuances, how about that, of how politics and policy works. He really does, and he showed that. Despite his goofy dementia-like things, he does understand politics. He understands what's going on and how to make it happen. I'm not sure I agree that his strategy is right, but I'll give him credit. Like, I went to law school. I sat through lots of long lectures. It reminded me of listening to a law professor. Like, he would just go on and on and on in detail. So at least I'll give him credit that he's not losing his mind completely. But was this an effective way to communicate with the American people? I don't think so. I agree with you, Monkey Arms. I'm making fun of the forgetting things. I don't know if Biden is losing. I think he's lost a step. Look, I've watched clips. I mean, if you want another show, I'll put clips on of Biden 10 years ago, 15 years ago. He's definitely lost a step, no question. He's not Tom Brady playing in the Super Bowl, who clearly hasn't lost a step. But he does clearly, as I said, understand the issues and the ramifications and what's going on. And I'll give him credit for that. And I'm glad we could see that, where he was out there talking and showing that he did. But here's the thing. Biden's people know that he's not very good in these settings. And so as much as people out there might want to say, the press, or if you're on the left, might want to be like, hey, see how great he did? I promise you, his people are going back and going, damn, we got through that one. Look, I mean, the truth is they gave him a cheat sheet, right? And the pics came out in the New York Post. So let's take a look at these. These are shots from the press conference and pictures of the press conference. So that first picture there you're seeing is a list of pictures and names of the reporters who were allowed into the press conference. The ones circled and numbered are the people he's going to call on and the order he's going to call on them. Then the second pic is one of his note cards showing what he's, bullet point notes. Okay, so there you have it, the two pics. On the second one, I got no problem. I care. I got notes. I put a lot in my head too, but nothing wrong with notes. The first one, I have a problem, and it's not because of whether or not he can remember who people are. It's that he's literally selecting who's going to come to the press conference, and he's going to pick on them, and he knows the order he's going to ask. He's going to ask them questions. Maybe he even knows what they're going to ask him. I don't know about that, but the whole idea that you've sort of scripted out who gets to ask a question when doesn't fly for me. I have always liked the back and forth. Even with Trump, who would say the dumbest things in the world, I like the back and forth of reporters asking, raising their hands, and the president picking on them. It's like, you imagine, like, you're sports fans, if you watch after the game, coaches by, league policy, part of their contract, they have to go and they have to talk to the press. You imagine if they had a list of which reporters they were going to call? No, they take the questions as they come. That's what a press conference should be. You should take the questions as they come, and you should not isolate out people. I mean, Fox News, Peter Ducey, he had a whole, he put it a whole binder of questions, never gets called on. President's never called on him, even walking around, Peter just has to yell at him. And that doesn't really work. And, it's like, call on the opposition press too. Call on the friendly and the unfriendly reporters. They're going to be respectful to you. Just have your selected ones numbered, isolated out. That's where I have a problem. But don't think for a second Biden's people don't do this for a reason. They do it because they want him to be controlled, because they are worried he will have too many of the gaffes where he goes off, says something, loses track. If you think that's not the case, you got your head in the sand. Look, I saw it, I worked inside an administration. I know how closely people manage what a person can or can't do. I was at an event when I was working in the Clinton administration and Al Gore was vice president, sorry. Again, another Biden. And we were doing a big event for the press, for the style press, the Rolling Stones, the Details, the Vogues, whatever. And the vice president was going to address them. So they all came, into the old executive office building next to the White House, about 30 reporters, not traditional political press. The vice president spoke to him. Al Gore was like Joe Biden, the worst possible speaker you could imagine. I mean, literally, it was like listening to a drone. It drove you. It was like, come on, wake up. And he finished his thing. Like, I introduced him, walked away, finished his thing. And his staff came up to me, the vice president's staff, and was like, Rob, fix this. Because they were looking at the reporters just who were like glazed over. They wanted him to write these puff pieces to get excited about this initiative, this youth-driven initiative. They're like, Rob, go fix this. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Go fix it. What do you want me to do? They're like, go up there. Like, you want me to go up after the vice president and make him look bad? And they're like, yes. So I went up and I did a, song and dance for the press, my style, rabble rousing, and the reporters started clapping. And Al Gore, Vice President Gore, was standing off to the side. He just glared at me like, fuck you, dude. Like, you seriously took my credit. But my point is, aides around the president understand exactly what he's capable of, exactly what he will do, exactly what he can't do, and they shield him. That's part of the process. So when you see all that shielding, it should tell you right away they're concerned about how he'll do. So when everyone's like, oh, it was so great, he did so great. I mean, here's a tweet that Dolly Parton's sister, also a country music singer, put up. Sorry, Stella Parton. I'm really messing the names up. Maybe I have dementia. It's professional and shows true leadership is back when a president and his press secretary respect journalists even when they ask uncomfortable questions. I'm proud Pres Biden respects us enough to make notes and use them in front of us, not spewing garbage. Okay, well, first of all, I don't think the press did ask him very tough questions. They were very few. We'll get to that in a second. The border might be the one exception to that. And I don't have a problem with him using note cards either. Fine, keep yourself on track. I don't like that he kind of referred back to talking points all the time. That bothered me a little. He kind of went back to the standard talking points when he wasn't on a little diatribe. He went back to the standard talking points about, when it came to, China, foreign policy, Afghanistan. I don't think that's because they were worried he was going to forget. I think they wanted to make sure he just stayed on message. This is a White House that's very driven by message. Like, stay on the message, guys. They're like lockstep on it. I don't think that serves us right now. Maybe you thought Trump was too far off message, although if you went off Trump's message, he'd probably fire you and the message might change every day. Maybe that was a little too chaotic for some of you. But Biden's administration is so laser focused on we have a message and we're going to drill it out there. It's like they took, marketing lessons, from a social media campaign. And they're so driven and narrow focused on it that there's very little room, I think, to kind of have a back and forth with the press. And I think there's very little room to give the public an honest picture of what's going on. For an administration committed to transparency, to being open and showing everything, they are really committed to drilling home their message. That works sometimes. It didn't, it worked in the election, except the message was kind of narrow honed. It was COVID. Biden was in the basement. Trump was all over the map. I don't think it works in trying to govern a country. That narrow focus message, I don't think will have the legs it needs to have. And I think there are some important initiatives that Biden's going to try to do. Infrastructure, as he calls it, the jobs bill, the voting rights stuff. I'll talk about that in a minute. There's some really big things that he's trying to push through, some of which I think are really important. I don't know if he can do that just by trying to stay targeted on it. We're going to drill our message out like we're the, Communist Party of China. But that said, border, monkey arms, thanks. I don't think it's because we're all informed. Presser was a yawner, nothing new to learn, nothing new to report. Totally 100% disagree with you, monkey arms. Not with it was a yawner, but I think we had a lot to learn. And I think that's my point. If all press conferences are regurgitation because we already saw the news of the information on our own, right? We don't need them. We don't need the president to talk to us. This is my point, which I'm going to get to in a couple minutes. The job of the president isn't to deliver new information to us. It's to me, you're like cheerleader in chief. You're team captain. You got to motivate this team. So it's not about giving us new information. It's about having us see it differently and giving us a unique point of view on it. When it came to the border, it was the one area he got some pushback. He got questioned because, again, they're not letting people have access to see inside the Customs and Border Patrol facilities where they're housing kids. Now, I'm not going to get into the argument of why they have all those kids in there. People have said to me, some of our viewers have said, look, there's no surge. There's always a surge. Yes, there's always a surge. Look at the facts. There's 100,000 people came over the border in February. That's 3 times last February. Yes, more people may have come over during Trump than the year before, but it's 3 times last year. We have a massive surge. Everybody knows it. If you think they're not sitting inside the White House going, we got a crisis on the border. We thought we were going to have it. We were warning people about it inside our administration before it happened. Of course they are. Don't be naive about how smart they are about what goes on, whether they say it to you or not. They know they got a crisis. They know they got a mess. They know they have way too many people, and they don't want the press to see it. So he got into an exchange with a reporter, and I'm going to just play a little clip of it for you.
Given the conditions that were just laid out at the migrant facilities at the U.S. border, we've obviously been allowed to be inside one, but we haven't seen the facilities in which children are packed together to really give the American people a chance to see that. Will you commit to transparency on this issue?
I will commit to transparency.
How soon will that be, Mr. President?
I don't know, to be clear.
Not okay. Not okay. For you on the left, this is going to bug you, but I'm going to show you Ted Cruz. And look, Henry Cuellar, Congressman Cuellar, Democrat, went down to the border last week. I showed you some of those pictures. These are pictures from a Republican delegation that went to the border just yesterday and today. This is Ted Cruz's tweet. I know you don't like Ted Cruz. Doesn't matter. I showed you Cuellar's on the left. This is Cruz on the right. These are the pictures the Biden administration doesn't want the American people to see. This is why they won't allow the press. This is the Customs Border Patrol facility in Donna, Texas. This is a humanitarian public health crisis. Okay, I'm going to show you these pictures. This is one. It looks like a bad daycare center, but it's the little kids because Biden liked to make the point most of them are teenagers. Okay, this is another of the little kids. This is disturbing. These kids look like get me out of here because they're not allowed to go outside. And they're jammed in at like 100, like 700 times capacity. And then these two are the really disturbing ones. These are not the same pics I showed you from Congressman Cuellar the other day. Look at these. Those are people. Those are kids piled up on top of kids inside a pen. And the last one, which is a different room in the holding center, is that same thing. Literally, it looks like a garbage heap. It looks like a pile of garbage. Wow. Think about that, guys. It literally looks like a pile of garbage. Those are people piled up. Forget about whether it's humane. Forget about COVID. I mean, they don't want to let the press in to see that, but I have a problem with that. You can't say we'll let the press in to see it when we've cleaned it up. The whole point of transparency is you let us see it now. Transparency isn't when everything looks the way we want it to look. We'll show it to you. And you can say I heard a reporter, Jeff Zeleny on CNN say, but the pictures have gotten out, so the press doesn't really need to get in. And you're a reporter? What kind of argument is that? Because other people have gotten the pictures and leaked them out, or Congress people, you don't need to show us? Then admit you're not going to be a transparent administration. I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm not okay with it, but at least you're being honest. Don't say you're a transparent administration and then literally hide the thing you don't want people to see when it's a disgusting, ugly mess. And even if you're going to say it's not your fault, you didn't cause it. Your words didn't lead people to do it. Trump's policies did. I don't care. You got a humanitarian and health crisis going on that border. Let the press in to see it. Let the American people see it. That Latino reporter was saying, let us see it. When will you? I don't know. Not an okay answer. It's just not. All right. Where I do think, interestingly, by the way, what didn't come up in the press conference? Not a single question about COVID. The New York Times, a reporter from the New York Times put up this tweet. I thought it was interesting. She said, So far, questions at the Biden news conference on immigration, the filibuster suggest that coronavirus is no longer topic A. This was midway through, but there were no questions about coronavirus. To which Chief of Staff Ron Klain tweeted, well, not topic A, to her saying not topic A, not to the American people in the Biden White House. Like, but it's shocking that no reporter even asked about it. And some people said, well, it's because nobody, COVID's all done and he fixed it. What planet are people living on? COVID's all done and fixed? I don't know, a week ago, they were talking about variants and people need to worry. And Biden was saying maybe by 4th of July, we can get together and people need to get vaccinated. And millions of people have lost their jobs. And the economy, while it's growing, has literally, as I've said, been hit by this, semi-truck from hell. Millions of lives have been destroyed. They're estimating a massive increase in hunger and globally and in the U.S. Long-term. What do you mean COVID's not an issue? I don't know why reporters didn't ask about it. It's stunning to me. Partly it might be because he only picked 10 reporters and each reporter he let go on like they'd each ask 3 or 4 questions. He laughed at it at a certain point, but it was literally like one-on-one with a reporter for like 10 minutes. It was a whole press conference was thus 10 people. It was strange. I don't know what that means. Where I think Biden did hit his stride is when he got to things he was passionate about, the voting rights stuff. And you can see his voice suddenly, if you listen, suddenly his voice around certain things, it hits a level of kind of a graveliness and a certainty that you can tell he's not on script anymore, where he gets like fierce about his core convictions and principles. He's a working class guy, came out of Scranton, great grandfather came over on a boat from, Ireland. He's, at core, he's a working class guy. And you could see his defiance of it. And it came up around the voting rights stuff. And I'm going to do a whole show on the voting rights issue. But I just want to say that's one area where I think he's got a totally valid thing. I'm not a fan of what the Republicans are doing. I get why they're doing it. They're doing it as a reaction to the last election, right? Where they felt like because there were lax things around mail-in voting that they now have to do things that are restrictive. But the whole philosophy that you're going to win by keeping people from voting is not a very democratic philosophy. And I'll be the first to say I'm good with make sure people are who they say they are. But I've always felt let everybody vote. Back in the day, when I was a Gen X, youth activist, and those of you who don't know, I started a big organization, co-started called Lead or Leave, which was the first giant accountability campaign. And I became a Gen X leader and we were nonpartisan. We were on both sides of the divide. And we had tons of press, 60 Minutes profiled it. And it was an accountability campaign around the deficit, mortgaging our future, and all kinds of underlying issues we wouldn't be able to deal with because we were going into debt, which included sustainability, schools, good jobs, all those things. And one of the initiatives we launched was a voting initiative where we wanted to get voting booths on every campus in America. We figured, look, if you're over a certain size, if you have a population over a certain size, let's put voting booths on campus so kids can register as not their home place where their parents live, but let them be residents of the town they're going to college in, since that's where they spend most of their time, and let them vote there. We thought it was a genius idea, expanding the vote for young people. Shockingly, where do you think we got half the pushback from Democrats? Nobody wanted us to be able to get a bunch of young people who could literally win a congressional seat on one college. University of Austin, any University of Wisconsin-Madison, any big college, Ohio State, doesn't matter, Florida State, would literally be able to elect a congressperson. Nobody wanted that. So the fact that Republicans are more restrictive about it right now, Democrats are only for more access because they think they're going to get those votes. Both parties pick which side, they're restrictive when they think it's not going to help them. I think we should let people vote. Voting should be easy. I'm fine if we want to make voting over a couple days. I'm fine if we want to make it easy. I want it to be authentic. I want you to know who those people are. But making rules like you can't bring people food and water or waiting in line to vote, is stupid. And it's restrictive. And Republicans' strategy should not be, let's try to limit the vote. I say, get the message out and win the vote. You could get a lot of votes. You could get a lot of votes in inner city, in minority communities, if you drilled your message home in a good way. I think there's a lot to the actual core conservative message that could work. And I admire Biden for fighting on that because I think he believes in that. And when he came to those things, it mattered. But here's where the problem became. Biden is old school. That's what I realized. He's an old school guy. He understands the politics and the nuances of decades in the Senate. He's an old school politician, and he's an old school way of communicating. It's a lot about making deals and timing and when you do things. He's not a great communicator. And I think in the era we live in, the president is all about being a great communicator. One of our viewers, Monkey Arms, made the comment, it was a yawner, we didn't learn anything new because we already know it. The job of the president isn't to give me new information. I can get that. I can get that anywhere. I can get that from his press secretary. I can get that from going online. The job of the president is to guide and direct and inspire me, drill us forward. And if you think being telegenic or having a presence or being an honest, authentic communicator doesn't matter, I don't know what planet you're living on. You wouldn't be watching me if I was boring. And boring, exciting, it's not have to be like super high energy, but you have to be compelling and honest and authentic. And when you're off the notes and the thing, that's not. When you're picking who you're going to ask, that's not. You got to be freewheeling if you want to get the American people's trust who you don't already have. And I learned that story back in the day when I first started my first show at Fox News. Roger Ailes, I like him or hate him, he was a genius when it came to understanding media. Roger Ailes, when he watched my demo tape before I was trying to get him to give me a talk show, he turned the volume off. And I was like, why are you turning the volume off? He said, you got to hear me, everything I got to say. And he's like, if I don't want to watch you, I don't want to listen to you. It was a genius notion that we won't listen to you if you're not watchable, if you're not engaging. So it doesn't matter how good what you have to say is. If you're not engaging, if you're not compelling and giving it to us, we stop listening. And if the president isn't compelling, and if he's not 100% authentic, and if he's not taking those risks, like I said, I'd rather you be gaff man. Go out there and mess things up, but be 100% honest. Take questions from everyone. Go back and forth. His handlers got him handcuffed because they are terrified of that, because that could trash the message. But to me, that's what actually could create the message that could draw the center. Because as I've said before, 10% of the country's on the far right, 10% on the far left. 80% are in the middle, not really liking either extreme, but feeling there's no home for them. And then it's not just independents, that's Democrats and Republicans. They want a voice. They want to feel connected. They want someone to connect them. So last clip of this, Joe Biden talked about unity. And this is where I want to go out on this. Let's take a look at Joe Biden's unity clip.
The third reason I said I was running was to unite the country. And generically speaking, all of you said, no, you can't do that. Well, I've not been able to unite the Congress, but I've been uniting the country based on the polling data. We have to come together. We have to.
Okay, I believe that was honest. I believe that came from his heart. But which planet does he live on that he thinks he's united the country? I asked a guy I met in my neighborhood where I'm staying here in Florida, former CIA agent guy. I didn't know that till I was talking to him. Democrat. I just said, just randomly, would you say the country is united right now? And he looked at me like, are you kidding? He's like, I come out of the military. He's like, I got all these friends who are super conservative Trumpers. Some of them I can't even talk to. So again, I'm a Democrat. Democrats work for the CIA too. Lifelong military guy. Ask anybody. I don't know who thinks this country is united. We're more divided than we've ever been. So when President Biden stands up there and says, we're more united than ever, and I've united you, I'm like, seriously? And Al Gore invented the internet. But, where do you think you've united us? I mean, you've united even your own party's not united, but who's telling you that the country's united? And is that your messaging point? See, unity works. We've succeeded. Because the reality is it doesn't matter what your message is. People are smart, although we often think they're not. But the argument some people make about voting is don't let a bunch of dumb people vote. I'm like, let everybody vote. People are smart, even if they don't have like rocket science brains or super, high degrees in education. People overall are intuitively smart. Some aren't, but most are. And we figure things out. And people can tell when something's not honest, authentic, or real. Telling you that you've united the country, half the country's going, well, you didn't unite me. So if you want to get, Monkey Arms, last thought on this. I'm not saying Joe's dividing the country, but here's my point. Again, he doesn't get a pass because somebody else left problems that he's not fixing. He came into office, fixed the problem. If he's going to unite the country, then, the fact that I'm not dividing it more, okay, I take over a company that was doing terrible, that we threw out the old CEO. Guys, I'm not making us go worse down the tubes. No, you're supposed to bring us up. And if Joe Biden as president is going to unite us, he's got to get out of the box. Maybe he can't. Maybe he can't step past it. Maybe he can't make the leap. But I'm hoping he can. And you've got to start, honestly. It's just simple. by not being a Democratic partisan and trashing Republicans at every chance you get, joking in the press conference. I don't know if there'll even be a Republican Party. How's that uniting the country? You literally have to come out and say, I get how divided we are, and I get that everyone's at fault, including my side, including my party, including people on my side of the aisle. And we got to work together. And I get that some of you won't want to work with me and some of you won't agree with me, but I'm actually going to really reach out with olive branches. I'm not going to throw you under the bus and say, you don't want to do it my way, too bad. I'm going to say, yes, I get those of you, half the country that didn't vote for me, need to be won over. He's not doing that. That is how you unite a country. And if he doesn't do that, we will continue to divide. I'm not saying he can necessarily succeed. Maybe he can. I'm not sure he can. I don't think it's in him, but I want it to be in him. Because if he can't, we're going to divide and fracture even more. And then it will be up to the next president. And who knows who that will be? I promise you the next president after Biden is going to be somebody who understands how to connect in a way that Biden doesn't. Maybe that's an AOC type personality. She's a great example on the left who does connect with people. I don't know that she could be a uniter either, but I think it's going to be a populist person who recognizes with a fractured country and the division we have, we only win when we start reaching out to the other side. So me, Mr. Rogers here to you guys, it's why I do it. No matter how many times you beat on me for things I say, I'm going to keep going. Both sides have valid points. Both sides are making mistakes, and both sides need to compromise and come together. I'm Rob Nelson. Thanks for watching.